Thank you so much. My name is Christopher Denman. I'm the senior audio designer for Walt Disney Imagineering, Disney Parks, Experiences, and Consumer Products. Basically, our group deals with anything interactive with the Walt Disney Company. And today I'm going to be speaking a little bit about a product that we designed, came out last year in November, called Star Wars Jedi Challenges. So this product started as an R&D effort. Our R&D scientists came to the conclusion that AR was emerging enough that they wanted to design something compelling for audiences. And Star Wars seemed like the natural choice. Basically because Star Wars is already using holograms and augmented reality in their canon since the late 1970s. We know that we had to do something more than just present a hologram to people. We wanted to create an engaging gameplay for people as well. And so the concept turned into what is now called Star Wars Jedi Challenges. I'll give you a preview. That's Jedi Challenges. So Jedi Challenges uses, this was, actually I should start back a little bit further. This was a product that was made with Lenovo, Lucasfilm, and Disney. And we use proprietary technology inside of the Mirage Lenovo headset, which is up there. You would actually use your smartphone to download an app, put it inside the headset, and connect it. This gave you more tracking than the phone could handle by itself. And then we had the beacon, which is the pink glowing ball, which you would set on the ground. This would set your ground plane for the experience. And then the controller, which we chose to use as a lightsaber. And this is actually a replica collector's edition lightsaber that has light tracking on it too. This product came out in November 2017. Yes, and we released it across 20 different countries. It still has very high ratings within the app stores. We're still developing for it today. And we won 14 plus awards, including we just got the best sound design at the 2018 Game Audio Awards. Go on to the next thing. So we knew that moving into this product, we wanted to push the audio further than most mobile games, and we wanted to treat this much more like a console game. But doing that on the phone can be difficult. These are some of the challenges that we had. We had a very compressed timeline for production. From the time it was greenlit until launch, we had 6 months. That's not audio production, that's the entire production itself. We also had to choose an audio engine and some form of audio spatialization tool to make this all happen. We researched extensively across all different audio engines, FMOD, WWise, Fabric, even Unity built in, creating our own engine. And we decided that Wise was going to give us the most power and the most flexibility. We also knew that because this was going to be a headset experience, we wanted to push the spatialization further than just standard 3D audio. And we chose to use GVR at the time, which is now Google's Resonance Audio. And then the biggest one, which is actually a funny thing for us to deal with, is a lot of our production team and game development programmers had no idea what 3D audio was at all. Because they were used to making 2D, Connect 3 experiences and different experiences like that. So we actually had to explain to them what 3D audio was and why that was important. One of the other challenges we had too was this was new technology that was pushing the phone's CPU capabilities very far. Early on in development, you only got about 10 minutes of gameplay before the phone overheated, and this was before any audio was even put into the game whatsoever. So optimization was key, and it was crazy. So I mean, development into this. I mean, I think we were pushing like 20 to 30 minutes of gameplay, almost up until launch. This thing would just start dropping off in frames, or we would get, crashes, overheats on the phone, and all this other kind of stuff. So it took a lot of work for us to actually get the audio to work for Jedi Challenges. And then we worked with multiple partners on this as well. Lenovo, Lucasfilm, Disney. We had 2 external development teams that we worked with, Shell Games in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and also Blind Squirrel Games in Santa Ana, California. And then the last thing, and something we're always tasked to do at Disney, especially within Imagineering, is it had to be innovative. Like, how can we push the audio further? How can we push something into the users that they've never seen before? And so, unlike other AR experiences, we actually took the audio production into more of a VR space because we had the user's attention in the headset, and we also wanted to make sure that they were wearing headphones. So we had a few challenges here, and I'm going to touch on the technical audio design before I touch on any of the creative aspects. The biggest concern we had was the lightsaber. Everyone wants to hold a lightsaber and use it just like Luke Skywalker, Rey, whatever. But it has to feel right. And so moving into early stages of development of the lightsaber, we had a loop playing on the lightsaber itself, and then based on that velocity of the swing, we added one-shots of audio that would play. As the user made contact with other elements, we played clashes and etc. That felt terrible when you started moving it quickly, especially because this game is actually pretty frantic. So we had to develop a lightsaber that actually felt good to the user and felt more like the film. We were able to accomplish it like this. So the lightsaber is actually made up of the initial lightsaber idle. Sorry, there we go. We took the lightsaber idle, and then we added a modulated layer on top of that. And the modulated layer together. And the modulated layer would feed into an RTPC based on the velocity of the lightsaber swing, which would then control pitch and volume of both layers itself. So as you held the lightsaber and swung it, it actually would control the audio and make it feel like you were swinging it just like in the films. So I'll give you a short example here.
I will end your kind. Your fear still makes you weak.
Such an attractive face. Pity I'll have to ruin it. You handle a lightsaber well, but not well enough.
So you can kind of get an idea. It's hard to hear in the video a little bit too because there's so much going on, but that lightsaber is very reactive to the user. It's also, we used all of the surface tracking too that was already being done in the headset. So if you put your lightsaber pointed at the ground, it's making surface contact and will start sparking like you're hitting the ground. Anything that it touched that was supposed to be occluded would actually react to that too. So the lightsaber itself felt very good. The first time you fire that thing off, it felt amazing, and it just felt like this is the real lightsaber experience that we were looking for. So the next technical challenge that we ran into was audio spatialization. 3D audio has been around for a while, and ambisonics has been around for a while too. But the adoption of ambisonics into audio production for games is still fairly new. So we chose Resonance Audio, which at the time of launch was actually GVR. And we felt that out of all of the audio spatialization tools, theirs was the best for us, especially because it was optimized for Google Daydream, which is a mobile platform. And basically, Resonance Audio has 2 points of audio spatialization. You have the audio renderer and the audio room. The audio room is basically an ambisonic bus that allows you to create a zone, like a reverb zone. And then the render itself actually lets you get into first, second, and third order ambisonics. And that was really awesome when we started putting that in, but what we found is that the CPU hit from that was quite large. And so we couldn't throw everything at the ambisonics bus. So for what you just saw, the lightsaber duel, we chose third order ambisonics for just the voice alone. And that allowed, when your duelist was moving around the room and speaking to you, we got clear definition of where they were. And in the headset, it felt very much like that player was moving around. For strategic combat, which was a tower defense style game, we threw much more at it because the battle is happening around you on the floor. So as you're moving around, we were able to use ambisonics 2, so we lessened the definition, but there's so much going on around you. It felt like TIE fighters and X-Wings were flying past your head. You could hear the AT-ATs walking. You could hear, the ground troops moving around, and it felt very good. And then for the holochess or the Dejaric game, we were actually able to use everything because there wasn't as much rendering going on in the game. So we used the room to create a reverb, and we also created renderers for each character. And so that game is fun because you can move around the entire room and feel like all of those characters are right there in the room with you, and it felt really good. But the issue that we had here was the programmers didn't like that we were adding so much CPU to the experience, and they basically requested, if a user is not wearing headphones, we want this to be turned off. Before people started using Bluetooth headphones and wireless headphones, it was easy to detect if a headphone was plugged in or not. There were too many edge cases at this point for us to detect that. So we actually just created a toggle at the front of the experience, are you wearing headphones? And we were able to turn the buses on and off and turn the renderers on and off. And that's about as much time as we had to. We couldn't get too graceful with that, but it worked really well, and it saved for all the users that just wanted to use the experience with no headphones. So the next part and the next challenge that we had here, actually, you know what? Before I get into the music, I want to talk really quickly because the other technical challenges that we had is the amount of content in this game. We had 15,000 lines of dialogue, and that was across 7 languages localized. We had about 12,000 sound effects playing and 100 minutes of original music. We had to optimize this thing like crazy. Our budget for memory usage at any given time was about 17.5 megabytes total. So we did loading and unloading of assets on this thing constantly. And we had to test this thing like crazy because we broke audio all the time. But it was actually like a really fun challenge. How can we keep the audio quality high to the standards that Lucasfilm is actually going to approve? And how do we also keep it at 17.5 megabytes running CPU? And basically, this is going to be using, or what we used was, I'm trying to think of the best way to describe this, but it was just an adaptive system that we created that was constantly looking at the priorities of what needed to be played at any given time, loading and unloading of those assets at runtime, and throwing away anything that we didn't need. And so we had to break all of our audio down into many segments so that we could actually take banks and unload them and load them at runtime. So moving into the music of Jedi Challenges, we had to handle this one delicately because most users are going to want to hear John Williams' score. And John Williams' score for Star Wars is iconic and beautiful, but it's not meant for interactive gameplay. So what we actually did was we licensed key tracks from the films and interpolated those melodies into our own original compositions. And here's the way we did this. For the dual interactive music system, we knew that the music needed to follow the action on the screen, that we needed to create a sense of tension at key points during gameplay, and that the music should be informative just like it would be in a film. So we created this interactive system that uses an intro, and then we broke out every single duel fight into 3 tiers. The first tier would play just the standard loop for the character that you're battling against. So in this example, I'm going to use Darth Maul, who was one of your opponents. His theme is the Duel of Fates, which is very iconic. As you enter into the battle, you hear Duel of Fates. When we go into the second tier of battle, we have a transition. We go into another tier 2 loop, which is still playing off of Duel of Fates. We then go into transition B, which is then going to look at the player state. And it looked at the health of the player and also of the opponent and said, are they winning or are they losing at this point? And this is when we made a transition. If the player was winning, we actually switched themes over to the Force theme so that you got that heroic Jedi moment. If you were losing, we kept it in Duel of Fates. We obviously rose the intensity the whole time. But we also had to take into consideration that even at this transition, if the player is winning, they can still lose. And so we did create win and lose stingers for the Force theme and win and lose stingers for Duel of Fates. The same system went across 7 different duelists, so we wrote 7 original versions of the Force theme for each duelist based on their original cue. Again, I'm not a composer, so if you guys are like, what is he talking about? Like, that might be part of it. Let me give you an example here. This is a slightly longer video, but I think it's worth it to watch. So this is a Darth Maul duel where the player wins. there's the win scenario for the duel. I think that like hearing that Force theme as you're playing this thing and winning the battle feels so rewarding. Like even to this day when I play the game. Another thing to comment on just on gameplay example, like you're sitting here watching and you're seeing these, marks come up and you kind of place the lightsaber there, and this thing will make you sweat so hard. Like this is one of the best workouts of like 2017, 2018 that's ever come out, and not that many people know about. So I'm going to go into the win scenario. We're going to jump into gameplay a little bit later here. So this is Darth Maul actually winning. So there's a lost track there. I should note too that in these videos, these are game captures from Unity wearing an Oculus headset. That's how we tested this game for the perspective of the augmented reality experience. And this mix has been adjusted to highlight the music. So the next thing we needed to worry about for the interactive music system was the Galaxy Map. The Galaxy Map is your hub for the game. This is where you access all game states. And we wanted this part of the game to actually be a very mellow, a relaxing experience for the player because the rest of the game is high action, high intensity. Excuse me. We wanted to establish earlier the Star Wars themes here because this is the first place the user is going to be put into the game. The Force theme obviously was the best choice for us to use. This game is about becoming a Jedi, and it's all about the Force. So that was our common theme across the entire game. But we also wanted to reduce repetition of just hearing the Force theme over and over again. So we created 3 long loops for the Galaxy Map system. It's a very simple system where you have your intro, your 3 loops, and your outro. These 3 loops actually randomize at any given point. So anytime you go back into the Galaxy Map, you might not hear the same loop. The loops themselves will play through the length of them and then choose another loop at random. And so it gives enough repetition that the user doesn't feel exhausted in hearing that same piece of music. So here's a quick example of the Galaxy Map audio. This is, again, a Unity capture. You can see this is stereoscopic. When you walk around, when you're playing this game, this Galaxy Map is gigantic, and you can walk around it, zoom in very closely. It feels really, really cool, and it feels like a hologram from Star Wars. It's really good. The other thing that was mentioned or shown in the last slide that I didn't touch on is the outro for the Galaxy Map actually leads into every single piece of gameplay. So one thing we didn't do here is there's no breaks in audio between loading from scenes. We made sure to keep persistent audio in certain banks across this entire game so that we always had smooth transitions in audio. So that's the Galaxy Map. The next part of gameplay that we wanted to look at was the strategic combat system. So this is basically a tower defense style game that projects on your floor, and it's awesome to walk around and like have a Star Wars battle going on your floor. The music for this didn't need to be as complicated as Duel. Duel was really the most complicated system we had to create because there's so much action. This is a little bit. There's a lot of action going on here, but it's really just about like placing down your troops and hoping that you get to the end of this experience. But we still wanted to push the adaptive system a little bit farther because this is long gameplay. Each match is like 10 to 15 minutes before you complete it, so the user is going to be hearing this audio a lot. So this is the system for strategic combat. We had an intro that always played. Intro and Part E were always the constants. They always played. Part E was basically at a predefined point in the gameplay where you were going to either win or lose. This was kind of that 75% completion, and that's when we made this transition. But it could take you a good 10 minutes to get to 75%. So what we did was we had parts B, C, and D, which were extended loops that would randomize just like the hologram, the galaxy map system. I'll give you a quick example of strategic combat.
The First Order's raid on Takodana inspired this simulation. Though I've added some elements to raise the challenge. Protect all the ships of Mars Kanata's patrons as they try to escape, or the mission is a failure.
Just for perspective too, like I was saying, this experience in real gameplay would take up about half of the stage or so. So it's a very large experience. The AT-ATs themselves, they stand about this tall. So you kind of feels like you have a little pet dog as you're walking around the map, and all of the ships flying around and everything are really cool. So whereas in Duel we focused on character themes, on strategic combat we focused more on themes for locations in the film. This is Takodana, so we looked at The Force Awakens themes that John Williams composed. We interpolated some of those themes and then extended those tracks. And we definitely took things more towards the like a military style of music, where we've got a lot of the marching kind of drum beats and whatnot, and that actually helped us with transitions. Those are good start and end points for every piece of music. All right. So those were some of the the technical challenges we had with music. Now, one thing to note is that a lot of these systems are already used in console games. This is not like new development, but you don't hear these types of systems implemented on mobile platform. And we, like I said earlier in the presentation, we really had to treat this thing like a console title. We were putting the user in the perspective that was going to give them that same style of gameplay. And even though we had a lot of technical challenges to put that on the phone, we felt that it was really necessary for engaging gameplay, and especially for that audio feedback. So there's a couple more things that we wanted to touch on before the launch of the game. The first one was Holo Chess. So for Star Wars fans, this game is called Dejarik. It's on the Millennium Falcon. And it's a chess-like strategy game. And if you remember from the films, and I didn't find a good example to show here today, there are these squeaky little animals that kind of fight each other, and it's very humorous and funny. We received a bunch of sound design from Ben Burt of the original sound design of these characters, and we implemented it in the game. And it was cute, but it was exhausting to listen to this for extended periods of time. So we actually ended up redesigning all of the characters and getting approval for Lucasfilm. We decided that taking it more into the character design of like traditional creature was better, deeper voices, defining character sizes and abilities with different types of sounds. And this game was also nice too because it was kind of a break. It allowed you to sit down. You could sit on this game, you could adjust the game board and just kind of play a strategy game and rest between duels. So I'll give you an example, a very short example of Holo Chess.
Now it's time to use your new piece. Monarchs can move one space per turn. To best use your monarch, force opponents to place their positions together. Try targeting a piece that's being healed by a gig, or is supported by a Hujix. Victory will never tumble into your lap. Like a monarch, you must stretch yourself to truly attain it.
Like I said earlier too, this was the one for the ambisonics and for 3D audio. If you check out this game at any point, this is the one that's using everything. We actually had the GVR room, and each one of these characters had their own renderers on them too. So you really get a lot of definition of space when you're playing this game, which felt really good. And it's because there wasn't as much going on in the scene that we could actually do that. The rest of the game wasn't pushing the CPU too far, so we could kind of have fun with this one and experiment. And it was really a good learning experience. And for future mobile products, I think we understand better now too how to use these tools and how to optimize these tools. So this is just kind of a fun side note that I wanted to touch on too. We actually got to create a new character for Star Wars canon, which is a big deal for Star Wars. They don't let you just create characters. So your guide through this entire experience is the Archivist. She is from the Jedi Holocron. She's your trainer. You've heard her in a few clips here and there. She is going through all of the training exercises, and we wanted to define her voice and who she was. We kind of went the very happy British kind of Mary Poppins-ish sort of character. I'm not going to say much in case people want to play this game, but there's definitely a twist with this character somewhere, and she becomes a pretty cool opponent too. So I thought it was really fun creating a new Star Wars character and working with Lucasfilm to develop her. And it also gave us an opportunity to create story where there was no story. You can take people through those experiences and say, fight with a lightsaber, fight with troops, play this game, and the game's over. And we actually have a whole story arc in this game, which is really fun. So this game came out in November of 2017. We're still supporting it, and so we're going to talk about a couple of the updates since then. I should note that we pushed the phones pretty far with the amount of content that was already in them. The app itself is large. I think it's like 2.5 gigs for download. That's a large app. And you can't go much beyond that. And on top of that, too, we were already pushing our memory. But the executive teams wanted more content. We added more content. So the first update we added was multiplayer. So if you have a friend with another headset, you can actually do lightsaber dueling with them, and it's super fun. This gave us some challenges. The first challenge was for Duel, the interactive music system that we created didn't work. There was no light side, dark side. There was no character. It was two people fighting one another. So we actually removed the interactive music system altogether for multiplayer. We also had to remove audio spatialization because there's no one speaking in Duel. You guys are playing together. And so this game is actually better played with no headphones. And this created like this new experience that was kind of fun. So we removed audio information from each player depending on what they needed. I don't need to hear the other player getting hit, but they do, and vice versa. I don't need to hear certain information, and by deleting that information from those players' perspectives, we actually created a new type of 3D audio in a way where the phone itself becomes the emitter in the room, and so if I hit the player, I hear feedback from their side, I'm hearing it from their perspective over there versus my perspective. And so the phone became this emitter, which actually created this kind of cool experience. So I'll just show you a quick update on multiplayer. So that's the launch trailer for multiplayer. That's in the game right now. If you have the product and you have a friend that has the product, you can play that, and it's really fun. We have an update coming out in about 3 weeks, 2 weeks, 2.5, 3 weeks now, and it's the Dark Side update. So the Dark Side update, they're actually releasing a Kylo Ren Collector Series lightsaber. If you don't have that lightsaber, don't want to buy that lightsaber, you can still play as Kylo Ren with a superimposed image on top of that. I can't speak to everything in this game because it's not launched yet. They have announced it, so I can touch on a few things. But the thing I really wanted to talk about here was this is changing the point of view now. Instead of us being Force-sensitive Jedi training, this is now training as a Sith, specifically through Kylo Ren's perspective. And so we use the same system for the duels, but we had to flip it over a little bit. Instead of hearing, Darth Maul come at you, now you're going to hear Yoda's theme as you're approaching, but we also wanted to not be sensitive to the Jedi because this is Kylo Ren's perspective, this is Sith perspective. We had to really push the dark aspect, the evil aspect of this. The other thing that was a challenge is Kylo Ren's lightsaber, for those that are familiar, it's a really cool sound design in the film. His lightsaber is unbridled. It sounds dirty and gritty, and the lore behind it is that he can barely control it himself, and that's why it sounds the way it does. The exhaust ports themselves in lore is because he doesn't have control over this lightsaber. Creating an adaptive lightsaber, like I showed you in the earlier example, we had to change it a little bit for Kylo Ren's saber. It didn't work the same. We tried putting an idle loop, and we tried putting a modulated loop, and it felt fine, but it didn't feel like in the films. Ben Burt, Matt Wood put a lot of time and effort into when he's swinging and hitting this thing, it makes all of these crazy sounds. So we did add sweeteners to some of the swings. Like I told you earlier, it didn't work well for the initial launch of this product, but it helps. But what we also did that was a little bit different for Kylo Ren's lightsaber was we added an LFO to the modulated layer of the lightsaber loop that was looking at the velocity and actually changing the modulation of the frequency of that modulation loop as you were swinging your lightsaber. So you got these really crazy, like sort of fluttery sounds as you were swinging it, and it worked really well. We also created new music themes. We put in about another 25 minutes of original music into this update as well. And because of that, we had to optimize even more. Here's a launch trailer for Dark Side.
You underestimate me.
Much to learn, you still have.
So this Dark Side update comes out in a few weeks. So that's Jedi Challenges as it stands today. I think I'm a little bit early, but not too early. But if you guys have any questions or anything you'd like for me to explain more, I'm happy to hear it. And thank you so much for letting me talk today.
Do we have any questions? Yes.
Thank you, Christopher, for your talk. It was very interesting. I'm kind of ashamed that I didn't know about this game till today. So that's kind of what I want to have at home. And there will be two questions.
Sure.
Is there only two options to be with headphones or without them? Or users are able to maybe connect their phone to a home theater system to improve the sounds during playing? That's the first one.
Yes, so you could connect the audio out to any source. That'd be fine, whatever your phone supports. Bluetooth. We tested it. We're using Bluetooth a lot, but we were able to stream audio out of Bluetooth as well. And I don't remember exactly the spec that we were using. It's been a while since we talked about that, but you could put it out to an audio source other than headphones. The thing is that the audio is meant to be heard from the first-person perspective, so the mix would be off a little bit. That was actually something I didn't touch on, but it kind of reminded me too. In the one video, Strategic Combat, you kind of saw everything going on, and the mix didn't sound right there. We could not mix this thing in Engine. It just didn't work. It's always sounded off because you can change your perspective. You can walk and we had to do so much work to refine this mix. This thing had to be mixed in headphones. And what we did was stream all of the content to Wise in real time over Wi-Fi, and we mixed in real time. So it was like 2 or 3 of us at a time mixing this game. Someone always had to play and someone always had to mix at the same time. But yeah, if you want a bigger sound experience, absolutely you could hook it up to speakers.
Thank you. And the second question is, was there kind of experiments to convert the lightsaber into a blaster, maybe to have a room trooper fight?
No comment.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's really I'll just say this again. I can't touch on a lot, unfortunately, but the R&D teams do a lot of cool stuff. And for this platform, even before it was launched with Lenovo and the Mirage AR headset, the stuff that they've come up with for augmented reality is just breathtaking and very engaging. And all I can say is that there are more experiences to come. Whether it's with this or something else, there's a lot of really fun experiences to come. I think augmented reality definitely a very viable gameplay system, and I think it'll be really cool. Yeah.
Any more question?
Hi, really great talk. I especially enjoyed the thing about the LFOs. I think that's definitely something I'm going to try in future projects. My question is, how did you handle audio QA on the project? Like, did you have like a dedicated audio person? Did you have automated testing maybe to test like the loops worked? Or like, how did you handle QA for such a large project with so many sources and gameplay scenarios and VO lines?
Yeah, so we did, first off, we had a technical sound designer. He works under me, Max McCoy. He's awesome, super great guy. I always make sure that when he hooks up the audio, he's testing it thoroughly. And then we also leaned on our QA team and had a dedicated audio person from our QA team to just listen to music and VO lines. She had access to all of the audio asset lists, so she knew exactly what was being put in, where it was, all of the dialogue, how the dialogue systems worked, and she checked everything for us very efficiently. But yeah, I mean, without that, this thing was, when we first got things hooked up, this thing was broken. We were, like I said, we're pushing an update soon too, and like changing all of these things around, we broke audio all the time. It breaks a lot. So having a dedicated QA person, whether it's with the QA team or someone embedded on your team for a large project, I think is necessary. Yeah.
Any more question? Thank you. Big applause,
Thank
please.
you so much.